G'day folks, Links here, and welcome back to a new episode of Great Tech New Horizons. So you might have noticed that I haven't uploaded for quite a while. I think it's actually been like nearly 2 months. Just a mixture of things, mostly Factorio, so I've been doing a Crestorio 2 plus space exploration run on the 2.0 closed testing version of space exploration. It's been really good. I'm not very far in, but I've just got my first cargo rocket, so still very early. Otherwise, there's just been real life stuff, unfortunately, that's been eating a lot of time and also kind of sapping my motivation to invest the time into GTNH. Today, we're going to look at nitrobenzene. So I really need to scale this power setup up that I have here. So this is my benzene setup. And I was originally going to make nitrobenzene here. I made room for the chem plants, although I wasn't really smart enough to realize that I could just wall share them. But we will be wall sharing chem plants in the new setup. But basically, I just want to go sort of bigger scale. So we'll have 20 LGTs. These will be using HSSE rotors probably in loose mode, so then I get an amp of LUV, or just under an amp of LUV out of each turbine. But I've also left room for XLGTs as well, for a couple of XLGTs, potentially. Or we may actually even demolish some of the smaller LGTs to replace them with XLs as well. The XLs are pretty decent, as I understand. I've not actually gotten far enough to use them before, but basically my understanding is they do the work of 16 rotors, of 16 turbines, but with 12 rotors. So basically, reduced footprint and reduced rotor cost. So I've made a start on getting this set up. Actually, I guess what I should do. So, although I've not been recording, I've not exactly been idle. I have been making some changes. So we have more autocrafting stuff. So set up I do want to start getting Dango distillers for the benzene setup at some point and for the biomass setup. So set up a chemical plant for autocrafting. This is basically the best chem plant I can build right now. With the exception of the casings, I could go to tungsten steel. These are titanium, but I don't need titanium for this. I don't need tungsten steel for this right now. Built a multi-bot compressor, and also built a multi-bot fluid extractor to replace the autocrafting HV1 that I've been living off for ages over there. There's nothing really changed in chemistry land. It's basically all still the same. And then in ore processing, again, nothing's really changed. I've just spent some time optimizing it a bit. There were some missing filters for certain byproducts and stuff like that, so I sorted that out. This section is new, though. I've set up the IC2 crop breeding bot using the instructions on the GTNH wiki. This is really good. Even if you don't know anything about open computers, that's fine. The wiki instructions are actually really, really good. I didn't have any problems. I just followed the instructions and it worked. And all I do to keep it supplied with crop sticks is there's an ME export bus underneath this chest, and it has a crafting card in it, so to make sure that we auto craft any crop sticks if this chest ever gets, as they get used. I was using it to breed glowing earth coral, which we'll use to get Cenarium at some point. But I also used it to beef up a couple of my other crop fields as well. And then in terms of bees, I've not really done anything new in terms of bees. I really just set up I just bred the Pyrophium and Lapitron bees. But then I realized that I can't use the Lapitron bees in any of these alvearies, because you can't use alveary fans to make it icy, which they need to be icy in order to produce the combs. So I sort of have a couple of choices. I can either go into witchery, go into a bit of witchery and change the biome of one of these plots to be an icy biome. Or I can use an industrial apiary. So I can use an industrial apiary and then use there's a upgrade chip that you can get for the industrial apiary to emulate iciness. The only problem I have with apiaries is they use a lot of power. Or they can use a lot of power. But I don't think that'll be too much of an issue soon. I don't think that'll be too much of an issue soon. The Pyrotheum bee, out of the two, the Pyrotheum bee is probably the most important one for the moment, because we want to replace these blast furnaces with Vulcani. And basically that is that's going to be the next sort of big infrastructure upgrade, I think, after power. So the goal for today is that we want to get this nitrobenzene setup finished. So I've been using just two LGTs hooked up to an ender tank. So I had 3 ender tanks that I was originally using for my portable miners, but I've just I'm not mining anything at the moment, so I've just used one of those ender tanks here to feed some benzene into these. So these are currently are in tight mode, so they're just outputting an amp of IV each with their HSSE rotors, and they've just got IV dynamo hatches. And then down here, the ME network is also just being powered by a single block EV turbine, again hooked up to a ender tank, so I could get the EV, so I could get the network going. I do have the 20 LGTs crafted already, and I have all the turbine casings crafted for them. I just don't have the dynamo hatches, but what I'm probably going to do, I did IV here for now, but I'm probably, once I get the nitrobenzene setup finished, I will replace these with 4 amp IV dynamo hatches, so then we can run them in loose mode and get that, I think it's like 29,000 EU or something. Where is it? Yeah, it's like 29,728 EU. So it's not, or I could, well, to be fair, I can actually overclock it by feeding it slightly more fuel and probably get it up to that actual, 32,768, I think is an amp of LUV. But yeah, I'm hoping, because one thing I'm starting to run into is, especially when I'm doing big crafts, this outputs 4 amps of LUV. I am actually starting to consume 4 amps of LUV when the blast furnaces are going, and when the autocraft, and when there's a lot of autocrafts going on that platform. So I definitely need more power. So if I can take that 16 amps of IV that I'm currently producing, well, actually I'm not producing 16 amps of IV, I'm only producing like, I think it's 10. I think it's about 10 amps of IV that I'm producing, or something like that. But it's going into a 16 amp battery buffer. But yeah, if I can actually replace that with like 16 or 20 amps of LUV, that should see me for a little while, at least. So, all I should have left to do is to get the chem plant built. I did actually run the setup a bit to get it to start producing benzene, and some of the other bits. So, you know, there's actually now benzene in here. Oh, the benzene's actually full. But yeah, there's now actually benzene in here and a few other things, and yeah, the other byproducts. But the benzene production is actually, with 8 HVDTs, the benzene production isn't actually that fast. So I won't be building dangotes for a while, because they are quite expensive still. So I need to get these 2 quads built, which will get me up to 16 HVDTs, which produces about 3.2 buckets per second of benzene, which should be enough to feed 2 chem plants, hopefully. This whole area will be ICOs, so these will be running at EV. So at the moment I've just got 8. This is producing the distilled water. In fact, I should probably put a sign on it. So this is producing the distilled water, and then this is just regular quad DTs as well. But the nitrobenzene actually eats a lot of distilled water. Because the chem plants will do 8 parallels, each chem plant will use 80 buckets at a time of distilled water. So at the moment I have a big buffer. I have a 8,000 bucket buffer in the ME network, but I do want to replace these with dangotes sort of sooner rather than later, but I'm hoping that with the big buffers I've got, because the turbines aren't going to be running all the time, so I'm hoping that with the big buffers I've got, we should be good. So the plan is that I will get the benzene setup finished. I'll get this finished, get the chem plant built. I've left space there for a 5th air centrifuge. I'm not sure if I need it. I probably will. So each one of these outputs about 1.4 buckets per second of oxygen. So I'm getting, what is that, about, is it 6.2, I think? Yeah, I think it's, no, it'd be about 5.6, won't it? I think I'm getting about 5.6 buckets per second of oxygen out of these. The only thing that oxygen is being used for is the sulfuric acid and the nitric acid. But I will probably have to supplement it. So these are running at EV, and I actually expected them to use more power at EV than they do, but they only use about, I think it's about 600 odd. Unfortunately, I can't really, I guess I could do that and then do that. So yeah, they use about 692 EU, which is pretty good. Oh, actually, yeah, sorry, one other big change. I'm running 2.8 now. So I upgraded to GTNH 2.8. I am on the latest daily build as of, I believe it was like 3-4 days ago. So just ahead of Beta 2, I believe. I think Beta 2 is the current release. But yeah, basically just ahead of whatever the current beta is. And it's been pretty good. It's been pretty good so far. A few new changes I like. Some really nice changes. Also, it did break a couple of recipes. So a couple of my auto crafting patterns had to be updated. But other than that, it's been pretty stable. Pretty good. So hopefully, hopefully we'll see the actual full release of 2.8 sometime soon. But yeah, I'll be interested to see if there's. I think there might be one or two things that they are smuggling in just before 2.8 releases that I may not have in this version yet. I don't know. But yeah, one of the things I do like, because I really liked it in Nomi Factory, which is GregTech CEU, is the glowing blast furnace coils. So they've added that in 2.8. So pretty much anything with coils. So the LFE, the blast furnaces, oil crackers, stuff like that will actually glow when they're doing recipes. Their coils will glow. And that's something I really liked with the thingy, with GregTech CEU. Right, so what I'm going to do, because I've been yammering on for quite a bit, is basically our two goals for today are nitrobenzene and lapatronic supercapacitor. So we are going to, so I'm going to go away and get the chem plant built for the nitrobenzene and see if we can't get it producing, a bit of nitrobenzene, and then we'll come back. And we're back. So, I have built the remaining distillation tower quads. So we now have 16 HP distillation towers. Everything's all wired up underneath. They've all got machine controllers on them, which lead back to these level emitters here, which are level emitting each of the byproducts. Originally, I was actually level emitting hydrogen instead of the 1,2-dimethylbenzene because I thought, oh, it only electrolyzes into hydrogen. But this is actually, I'm also using 1,2-dimethylbenzene to make talic acid for processing bee combs. So, and this is my only source of the 1,2. So, so basically, what I've done is all of the other byproducts go into storage cells in the ME network, but the 1,2-dimethylbenzene actually goes into a super tank 2, which has a bidirectional storage bus on it, and that is feeding directly into the electrolyzer, and the electrolyzer is level emitted on hydrogen, I think. yeah, the electrolyzer is level emitted on hydrogen. So basically what will happen, and this has fluid voiding turned on. So yeah, what will happen is basically the 1,2-dimethylbenzene, the 1,2-dimethylbenzene will end up in here. All the other byproducts from the distillation towers will end up in storage cells in the ME network. And basically what will happen is I will set it up so that the main net can pull from this tank when it needs to make talic acid, or also hydrogen. I electrolyze the 1,2-dimethylbenzene from this setup from the setup over here is used to make talic acid, but it's also used to electrolyze into hydrogen for the main net as well. I would like to keep this self-contained, so I will probably, yeah, I'll probably not take hydrogen out of this network. I'll probably just take the 1,2-dimethylbenzene directly. And basically this network, all being well, this self-contained network should always keep about 7,000 buckets of hydrogen buffered. So the other thing I've done is I've got the chem plant built, and I've got the space laid out for the second one, which we'll build eventually, but as you can see, it takes on a lot of titanium casings, and because I'm using an IV energy hatch, it also takes a lot of IV. It takes like 57 IV machine casings, I think, which is a lot of tungsten steel. I mean, that's like 8 tungsten steel per machine casing, if I recall. And then I've got the tungsten steel pipe casings and the HSSS coils. So yeah, this is quite expensive to build. So the way this is currently set up is I have an EV input hatch for the distilled water because it needs 80 buckets per run. And then all the others are using HV input hatches because the other fluids, so benzene, it needs 40 buckets per run. Nitric acid, it needs 40. And then sulfuric acid, it just needs 8 per run. So I could have gotten away with a smaller hatch. And then in terms of the export buses, I have acceleration cards in... I have an acceleration card in the benzene one. So this will ensure that this fills up. Each cycle in this will take 10 seconds at IV. So this will ensure that the acceleration card will ensure the distilled water fills up before the 10 seconds is up. I don't have acceleration cards in the other ones simply because the default rate is 4 buckets per second, whereas this will do 32 buckets per second. So 4 buckets per second is just enough to keep the benzene and the nitric acid full because that's 40 buckets per 10 seconds. And the recipe cycle time is 10 seconds, so there may be like a tiny bit of downtime between 2 cycles, potentially. And obviously this only needs 8 buckets per cycle. So I did turn it on briefly, and it did work. So in theory, if I just turn it on, it's using 3840 EU per tick, and it takes 10 seconds at the moment. That in theory will actually drop. Yeah, I have the option to put better coils in, and yeah, I do like the glow. It's nice that the coils glow now. I didn't know that they did it for the LCR, but yeah, the LCR coil glows as well, which is kind of nice. So the way I have this set up right now is I have a Super Tank 3, which is 16,000 buckets. And I also have a Super Tank 1, which is 4,000 buckets. This is not connected to anything. So this is the backup tank. So if something goes really horribly wrong and I have a blackout and this ends up empty and all the turbines end up turning off, I can basically take the contents of that and shove it in there and kickstart the whole system again. Or I could pick this up and put it somewhere to kickstart the system again. So this is my emergency reserve supply of nitrobenzene. So this will always be off-grid. This will always be off-grid and is basically just in case of emergencies. So the recipe outputs 40 buckets of nitrobenzene per cycle. So what I have is, and obviously if I wall share the chem plants, this output hatch will serve both chem plants. So that means it could output 80 buckets every 10 seconds. So what I have is I just decided to throw a Tantalloy 60 pipe on there, which is literally like 120,000 buckets a second. Sorry, 120 buckets a second. So yeah, this will output 80 buckets every 10 seconds. Yeah, I just wanted to make sure that it gets emptied into the nitrobenzene tank as quickly as possible. The other neat thing is that the buckets also, the pipes also act as a buffer. So each one of these pipes, I think, each one of these pipe segments will hold 120 buckets. And this will also, being an EV hatch, also hold 120 buckets. So we'll have a nice buffer in the machine and the pipes as well. So I don't want to hook this up just yet. I do need to keep an eye on you. Yeah, so you're fine for now. This will stop eventually, I think, because I've so I tested the whole sort of distillation setup yesterday before I got to the point where I was ready to add the chem plant. But obviously I didn't want it to sort of keep running without any input power, because I've just been turning these turbines on and off manually. So what I did is I just turned this off. So now the system is backed up on charcoal, so the industrial coke ovens won't start because they're backed up on charcoal. So I think what I want to do is probably get the... I think what I want to do is I want to get the new system. So we'll get the other LGTs placed. At least if we get like another 5 of them, I guess. And the way that this is currently working is... So that's transforming... Yeah, so this is outputting 4 amps of IV. And this is outputting... what is this outputting? This is outputting... Yeah, so this is outputting 5 amps of IV, and this is outputting 4 amps of IV. So actually, so I had a rough guesstimate that I was producing about 10 amps of IV. But yeah, it's about 9, or just under 9. So what I should be able to do in theory is actually just hook these turbines directly up. Now, what I've done for this one, though, is I've used vanadium gallium cable, which is LUV cable, and handles 32 amps. So I think what I will do is I will probably do the same thing here. I'll probably do the same thing here, so I'll probably replace... Because if I output these at... Yeah, I think the way I would like to do it is if I change these to 4 amp dynamo hatches and run the turbines in loose mode, I think I would like to run... transformers to transform them up to an amp of LUV. And then we'll carry LUV down this cable eventually. But for now, I need to figure out how to do it without... probably without blowing anything up. So for now, I'm going to leave this as it is, and I'll probably just build another wireless redstone setup to control these turbines. But when I go to the LSC, what I'm going to do... what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to get rid of the RS latch setup, and I'm just going to do a really, really simple, dumb setup that just has 2 energy detector covers, a high signal and a low signal. And basically just turn the... Actually, it would still be a latch, wouldn't it? But yeah, basically just have actually, yeah. I think that would still be a latch, but yeah, I'm not sure if I would do it. Oh no, it's so you can get rid of the dense red crystals. That's it. So yeah, basically you would have 2 energy detector covers that are going into a latch, one outputting a high signal, one outputting a signal when the battery is low, another one outputting it when the battery is high, and then that would flip the latch, and then basically you don't need the dense red crystals. And I think the setup is a little bit more compact if you do it that way, but yeah, I'll probably just do that instead of doing what I've got now, which is the dense red crystal route, but we'll see. But yeah, this is slowly tickling away. So I think what I'm going to do, yeah, we're at 1.72 K. Yeah, like 1,700 buckets. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go away and we're going to get the rest of these built. And then what I'm going to do is hook them up to the main line. So if I get at least 5 of these built, then, because the way it'll work is I'll put the, how did I do it here? See, here I put a redstone transmitter on either side. I guess I could do that. The most expensive part of these is the tungsten rod, is the like tungsten steel rod. Otherwise, they're not very expensive. So what I might do is I might just build 5, which will give me 5 amps of IV. And then what I can do is I can just run the the thing then. I can just run them into this and at least get them sort of connected to the main network. Basically, I just don't want to be turning them on and off manually. That's really the important thing. I guess the other interesting thing is, though, this battery buffer. Because I need to keep this charged. Now, in theory, after its initial sort of thing, it should be fine. Like, once I've got it all hooked up, it should be fine, because this will really only draw power when all of that stuff is active. It may draw a little bit of power, because obviously AE will be plugged into it, so it may be drawing like an EV amp or something like that, because I think the AE network is drawing like just over a HV amp or something like that, or like half an EV amp. So this may... yeah, this may do something. I may need to do something about this, but I'm hoping that I can get away with not doing anything about it. The other option is I could do a redstone setup specifically for this as well. I just don't know where I'd fit it. I'd have to move this cable probably. But yeah, I could do a redstone setup for this. To make it that the generators could come on if this is running low. But yeah, I'll have to figure out how to hook that up. Because the thing that I don't want to do is, so the LSC is going to go here, because this will be sort of my central platform. I have power going that way and that way already. So the LSC will go here, and the battery setup I've got underneath the floor will just go away. So I think what I might need to do is either do some funky redstone with this one here, or run an output cable from that LSC all the way back here to power that stuff over there, but I really don't think I want to do that. I guess this is kind of the problem with the way that I've laid this out. But we'll see. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go away and I'm going to get some more turbines set up, and then we'll come back. And we are back. So, unfortunately, I'm not going to get around to doing the LSC today, because troubleshooting this and playing about with it and various other distractions ate more time than I would have liked. But we do have working nitrobenzene now. So what I finally figured out what I'm going to do with this. So I just have an energy detector on each side. One emits a signal at 90% full. The other one emits a signal at 15% full. And basically they flip this RS latch, which goes to these 2 turbines. So this whole setup over here consumes about 6 amps of IV. Each one of these is outputting 4 amps of IV. But unfortunately, one of these, because I started with just this one, but 4 amps of IV wasn't enough to cover it. So 4 amps of IV or it's not quite full of 4 amps, because 4 amps would be 32,768. This outputs 31,110. So it's about 1,000 EU less than a full amp of LUV. I'm not entirely sure why. I assume that because I used the turbine calculator spreadsheet with a large HSSE rotor. I do wonder if the turbine math maybe changed slightly a bit between 2.7 and 2.8, or between the version of the sheet that I'm using and whatever the current math is, because I may not have updated the spreadsheet. I may not be using the... I'm definitely using the 2.7 version of the spreadsheet. But anyway, so what I did was I've just hooked up a second turbine. So these 2 turbines are reserved purely for powering that setup over there. Because that setup over there, when it's fully occupied, averages about 50,000 EU per tick. So 8 amps of IV is plenty enough, and I still have headroom because 8 amps of IV is about 64,000. So I have plenty of room. I still have plenty of headroom. I still have like 14,000 EU per tick of headroom. Basically, the nitrobenzene tank's coming along really well. We got about 8.4k buckets, 8,400 buckets. I'm extracting it using an EV pump into the reason I'm using a large pipe here is because this will split and go that way. So each of these, each set of 10 turbines will use 3,000. We'll use 3 buckets per second. So this handles 9 buckets per second on each side. So I've just done a large one here, which is 19,200. And then these are definitely not keeping up. I will have to get oxygen from something else. I will probably have to... The source of oxygen in my main net is actually sugarcane. And I'm electrolyzing sugar. I know that's not optimal. My plan is to replace it with something else. I've seen that Swede, which I think is a Pam's Harvest Craft crop, is pretty good to use because you can put it in the industrial greenhouse and you don't have to run it in IC2 mode, because running it in IC2 mode requires LUV power, whereas running it in regular crop mode means I could run it at like EV or IV. And I think it might be faster in regular crop mode as well. But yeah, so basically this all works. It's just I'm not going to get to finish setting it up on camera, unfortunately. But yeah, these 2 turbines are actually hooked into the main line. So I have the wireless receiver and the redstone coming down to these 2 turbines. Obviously, this one isn't built yet. And so these are now outputting 4 amps of IV each into this vanadium gallium. So this is 12 amps. This can take 12 amps. So I will have to upgrade this. I can still build this turbine and be fine. But to build like... Actually, this could stay as this because those 2 turbines down the end, they're never going to be connected. Because the other issue that I ran into is I don't quite know how power priority works with GT power. I thought it was distance based, but it doesn't appear to be. So what happens is if I connect this line to that line, this actually doesn't receive any power. What happens is all the power gets eaten by that battery buffer over there until it's charged, and then when it's charged, this one then starts getting power. So I don't know how power priority works in GT5U. How it decides where to send the power. So that's why these are disconnected, which it is a bit of a waste, but it's fine. This setup will be outputting more than enough power for the foreseeable future. So, each one of these turbines is an amp of LUV, so I will get 8 amps of LUV here on this side, because obviously these 2 are plugged into there, and I'll get 10 amps of LUV on the far side. So we'll be fine for the foreseeable future. Because 16 amps of LUV is... And that's That's an amp of UV. That's 1 amp of UV power. So yeah, so this is connected to the main line. This vanadium gallium cable will hold 32 amps. So I think at the moment, so obviously there's going to be 8 amps coming from here. This is like 2 amps. You know, all the turbines over here added up adds up to like 2 amps. So that's, you know, 10 amps. And then again, these don't output quite a full amp. They only output 6144. So yeah, I still won't be getting a full 16 amps into this battery buffer, but it'll be a lot closer. It'll be a lot closer now. So what I'll do is, off camera, I'll get the rest of these turbines built. So in between episodes, I'll get the rest of these turbines built. And what I will probably do for now is, because I have quite a sizable... I do have quite a sizable supply of sugarcane. So what I might do is, just for now, I will put an electrolyzer here instead of a centrifuge, and bring in sugarcane from the main net. And then eventually I will switch that out to like either sugar beet or swede or whatever. But for now, I was trying to avoid bringing stuff in from the main net, but oxygen should be fine. Because this will limp along. I did also try overclocking these to IV, but they draw too much power. They draw way too much power if I run them at IV. So yeah, we'll shove an electrolyzer here, and we should be good then. And the upside is, if I don't bring the oxygen directly in from the main net and rather just bring in the source, so in this case the sugarcane, then we should be in a then at least there'll be a bit of a, you know, I can at least buffer it in here, and you know, if the main net gets cut off for some reason, then we're not, you know, we won't be in such a bad shape. But yeah, so off camera I'll get the rest of these turbines built, and then we will have a functioning, you know, we'll have 8 amps of LUV going, in addition to what we've got over there. And then in the next episode, because this one will be a bit of a shorter one. Actually, no, it won't. I've just looked at the recording time. But obviously, because we didn't, the LSC won't take up a whole episode on its own. So what we'll do in the next episode is we'll build an LSC, get that up and running, and get it powered from this new setup, or from all these setups, and then we will do the infrastructure upgrades that will enable us to do. So we'll probably overclock the blast furnaces to LUV. I might even upgrade them to Vulcani in the next episode as well. So because I'm fairly sure I've got all the bits I need to make Vulcani to replace those blast furnaces. So what we'll do next episode is get the LSC built, get our power infrastructure upgrade complete. So basically it'll be a part 2 to this video. Get the power upgrade complete, and then we will do some infrastructure upgrades that we can do with that upgraded power. I haven't decided how high I'm going to build the LSC to begin with, so I've obviously reserved room to build a max height one, but we won't be building a max height one anytime soon. So basically I will probably build, so as I understand it, this is the minimum height. I think this is the minimum height. So basically, because basically it's 2 layers at the bottom of casings, and then I think I can do a layer of capacitors, and then the glass. I think so. I think a minimum, I think 4 might be the minimum height, or it might be 5. There might be a minimum of 2 layers of capacitors. I can't remember, but I'm fairly sure the minimum height's 4. But yeah, so we've got to figure out what tier of capacitors we're going to use as well. It's probably going to be EV to begin with, I think, because I think the IV ones are probably going to be too expensive. So if we have a look, the IV... Actually, the IV ones aren't... They're not terrible, actually. They need... The only real annoying part is that they need a Lapitronic energy orb per thing, but in all honesty, that's actually not really a problem. That's actually not really a problem, because the I don't think I can make these yet. Lapitronic energy orb Costa. Oh, I can, maybe. No, I need Naquita alloy. So I could make the IV ones. They're not actually terribly expensive, because I'd only need, I think it's about 9 of them, maybe. So that'll be 9 Lapitronic energy orbs. So it's not actually the end of the world to make them. So yeah, so anyway, if you've made it this far, thank you very much for watching. I am still getting back into the swing of things because it's been a couple of months. So, but we will definitely get this power upgrade finished in the next episode. And then after that, I'm looking at either potentially doing a bit of a redesign of the AE network or just moving on to progression. Because I have been edging towards several points of progression. I think I've nearly got the ability to autocraft PBI. I've got autocrafting set up for most of the tier 3 rocket. I think the biggest thing I'm missing is rocket fuel. Is production of rocket fuel. And like I said, I've also got some infrastructure upgrades, which are infrastructure progression like the Vulcanus. So yeah, so if you made it this far, thank you very much for watching. I hope you all have a lovely day, and I will see you later.